What's going on, everyone? It's Matt Deeks here. Appreciate you guys for stopping by. So today I'm showcasing an S-tier tactical boss slayer build that combines two of the newest heroic weapons in the game. For our melee weapon, we're running with the Argent Edge heroic combat knife, a fencing style blade built around perfect parries and devastating ripostes. For our primary weapon, we're running the new Deathwatch Heavy Bolt Rifle, which comes equipped with a built-in under-barrel grenade launcher that absolutely devastates. And backing it all up, brothers, are running the plasma pistol as their secondary, obviously, right? But the real power of this build comes from how it all interacts with the tacticals class's signature ability, the Auspex Scan, all right? So, with that being said, let's begin. All right, brothers, so let's go into the actual combat knife and kind of go over the perk tree and everything regarding this specific variant. Now, keep in mind that there are two heroic variants for the combat knife. There is the one we got a while ago called the Power Gladius, and then there's this one that we're going to be talking about, which is the focus and center point of this build, which is called Argent Edge. Now, if you don't have it unlocked, just make sure that you have enough accolade points, which you get from stratagems. It's the blue little triangle currency. Once you have it unlocked, guys, you'll be good to go. All right. So in terms of the perk tree, this is how I laid it out, and this is how I found it to be, or found the most advantageous perk tree layout for this specific heroic variant. All right, so we're going to start off with armored strength. So if you have armor remaining, melee damage increases by 10%. Now, I usually don't put this on if it's on a sniper because you only have 2 armor plates, but because you're on a tactical, you're going to have 3 armor plates, and honestly, those 3 plates, if you play right, if you play correctly, or if you're playing with a bulwark or a class that gives you some armor regeneration, which usually is the case, you're going to have armor remaining. So the chances of you losing all 3 armor plates or having 0 armor plates with a tactical with the 3 armor plates versus the 2 that come with a sniper, it's high likely chance. So I want to take that extra 5%, sorry, with armored strength as opposed to taking perpetual strength with only 5%. Again, a little bit of a risk, and there are going to be times where you have no armor, so you might lose that 5%, but it is what it is. Moving forward, we got sharp impact. So right and left skull crusher area of effect radius is now increased by 50%. And then we have 2 perpetual strength, so 5% and 5%, equaling 10% damage. And then I took the bottom portion here, guys. We got heavy onslaught. So heavy attacks with this weapon deal 15% more melee damage. And then we have reeling blow. So enemies hit by whirlwind slash deal 30% less damage for 4 seconds. And the cooldown is only 10 seconds. And then we have Tide of Battle, so power wave forward distance increases from 4 to 8 meters for whirlwind slash. And then lastly, for the Artificer, guys, we have Shadow Stab, my apologies. Replace heavy swing with Shadow Stab. Hold the attack button to charge it. Damage increases by 200% per 1 second of charging. So this in combined with the heroic perk, which we'll talk about in a second, is the main focal point of, in my opinion, the boss slayer tactical build. This Shadow Stab, when timed correctly with a stunned boss, and ensuring that your Auspex Scan is also timed properly, can absolutely shred a boss. All right, whatever level you're on, whether it's absolute, lethal, hard, normal stratagem, hard, normal siege, the combination of Shadow Stab, okay, and a perfectly timed Auspex Scan will do some intense damage. And then lastly, for the 1 relic tier perk, we have Extremist Slayer, so melee damage against extremist level enemies increases by 15%. And then if you didn't know, guys, the Scathing Retort is the heroic perk. So the riposte window is shorter, but each riposte deals damage. So if you don't know what that means, it's pretty straightforward. So each perfect parry window, if you want to call it, is shorter, but each parry deals damage right back, so reflects it right back to the enemy. So we're going to get into the actual tactical perk tree in a second, but There's a specific perk that I recommend you pop on, which will take 100% advantage of this specific heroic perk, all right? Scathing Retort. Honestly, without that perk, which, you know, this aforementioned perk, you could still do incredible damage, but with this specific tactical perk, this will make this specific heroic perk insane. Pair that with this bad boy right here, Shadow Stab, and this is why I named this build the Boss Slayer. All right, guys, let's continue and let's go over the heroic heavy bolt rifle called the Deathwatch. So again, this is a heroic variant, so you're going to have enough accolades to unlock it. So once you do unlock it, let's go into the perk tree. So to start off, we're going with Headhunter, all right? So headshots deal 10% more damage. And then we have Adamant Hunter, so when your health is below 30%, headshots deal 25% more damage. Fast reload, so this weapon reloads 10% faster. And then we have Cleaving Fire, so shots will penetrate enemy block stances, dealing 25% of the usual damage. So this is good against, you know, like Biovores, Tyrannid Warriors blocking while they're running at you, so on and so forth. At least it does 25% of the usual damage than 0%, right? So Cleaving Fire, solid perk to have on. And then we took Remote Threat, so enemies at a distance of more than 25 meters take 20% more damage. Honestly, I could not leave this one out. 20% is not nothing, so it's a decent amount of percent increase for damage, so I took Remote Threat. And 25 meters, guys, it's not that far. With this weapon, you really do want to be at a greater distance. When you want to use the grenade launcher, which we'll talk about later, it's the heroic perk, you do have to pop a little closer to make sure that arc is a little more accurate. But in terms of using this at a distance, it's perfectly fine, and the accuracy is totally viable at distances of more than 25 meters. So that this one should not be an issue. Then we have Great Might, so just damage increased by 10% against Terminus level enemies. We have another Headhunter, 10% damage increase. We have a Cleaving Fire, so shots will penetrate enemy block stands, dealing 25% more damage. So we have two of these right now, so I believe they stack. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I believe they stack. So now I'm looking at 50% more damage than usual for blocked enemies. Then we have Rampage. So after killing 7 enemies in rapid succession, you deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. And the cooldown is only 15 seconds, so not that long. Then we've got a few relic perks, guys. We have Extended Magazine, so magazine size increases by 15% of the maximum. We have Perpetual Penetration, so each shot penetrates one additional target. And then we have a Remote Threat, so enemies at a distance of 25 meters take an additional 20% more damage. So again, brothers, you correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I did look this up, and from what I understand, they stack. Okay, so both Remote Threat, so I have 2 Remote Threats, right? So that's essentially 20% plus 20%, that's 40% more damage at ranges of 25 meters or more. So with that being said, I believe they stack. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below, because from what I researched and my testing of it, they do stack. So again, let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong, brothers. Again, always down to be corrected. And then as for the heroic version, or the heroic version's perk, we have Auxiliary Grenade Launcher. So we have the ability now to toggle to Augmented Vision mode, which activates auxiliary grenade launchers. All right, so this bad boy right here, paired with a perfectly timed Auspex Scan, is just almost OP in my opinion, and absolutely shreds bosses. You put that on the Hive Tyrant at the end of Decapitation, and you're laughing. All right, brothers. Okay, let's go over just quickly my plasma pistol. The secondary weapon is my plasma pistol. Whenever I have the option to use the plasma pistol for a secondary, I will do that. So I chose, again, if you want to know exactly which one I chose, it's the Ophidian Liberation Alpha. The reason I chose that, simply guys, it's for the magazine capacity. You get 120 versus 90 and 90 for this one. I'm sacrificing slight rate of fire by not choosing this, and I'm sacrificing slight venting speed by not choosing this. However, the increased magazine capacity is just worth it, and you get a lot of these back, rate of fire and venting speed, through the perk tree. All right, guys, so with that being said, let's hop into the actual tactical perk tree and see where the magic really starts to shine. All right, brothers, so let's get into the perk tree. So my first core perk, I chose Balanced Distribution. So your primary weapon deals 15% more damage, but your secondary weapon deals 15% less. I'll take that any day, guys. Stacked with all the other damage multipliers, that extra 15 is going to put me above and beyond, making my heavy bolt rifle just absolutely insane. Okay, so Balanced Distribution is my first core perk. And then we have Heightened Vigor. So there's a specific reason why I chose this perk, and I don't normally choose this perk, but because we have the new heroic combat knife that you really want, it's a fencing variant, and you really want to be utilizing the perfect parry, the blocks, the parries, all that good stuff. So Heightened Vigor is really going to benefit you. So let's go over this. So after a perfectly timed parry, block, or dodge, so we're really looking at that perfect time parry, okay? You deal 10% more melee damage and gun strike damage. Do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and cannot be knocked back for 10 seconds. Now remember, because the damage is going to be reflected back to the enemy with a parry, you're going to be able to stagger and put your, specifically like Majoris level enemies, into execute mode or gun strike mode very, very quickly and efficiently. So you want to be taking advantage of this, all right? You want to be getting as many damage multipliers for things like perfect parries and gun strikes as possible, because you're going to be doing a lot of it with the heroic combat knife. And then for our last core perk, we have Emperor's Judgment. So after a finisher, the equipped ranged weapon reloads automatically, and your ranged weapon deals 20% more damage for 10 seconds. And again, the reason we chose this is kind of stacked with this is because the new heroic combat knife, again, it's going to put a lot of Majoris into execute mode. So you're going to be performing a lot of finishers with this melee weapon. So Emperor's Judgment, this specific perk, is going to really put you in an advantageous state to kind of swap and go between, spamming those finishers and then having 20% more range damage with your actual range weapons, either the plasma pistol, but really we're focusing on the heavy bolt rifle, right? Again, stacked with all the other damage multipliers. We're laughing, guys. We got like hundreds of % damage increases if we're stacking all of them. So already it's insane, but it's not done yet, brothers. So let's get into the team perk, the gear perk, signature, and lastly the prestige perks. So for the team perk, I always choose Secure Stockpile no matter what. In my opinion, it's the best, one of the best team perks in the game, outside of maybe Unmatched Seal, in my opinion, brothers. But Secure Stockpile, fantastic. If you're running siege mode, operations, strategies, doesn't matter. Having melt-a-bombs or crack grenades on repeat is just insane. Okay, and it really ties in with Boss Killer, right? Or Boss Slayer. A perfectly timed Auspex. If you time all this out right, guys, you pop the Auspex, you have a charged stab ready, you stab it out, take a few steps back, place that melt-a-bomb, take a few steps back, lay it out, initiate it, start it, hit it. Once he's staggered a bit, you pop out your grenade launcher with the heroic heavy bolt rifle, pop a few shots off, basically dead, if not already after the first stab All right. So secure stockpile, guys, a must in my opinion, brothers, a must. Moving on to the gear perk, we have priority targeting. So the mark from the Auspex Scan lasts 8 seconds longer, but the Auspex Scan ignores Majoris level enemies. That's fine. The reason I chose this is because there's another perk, I believe right here, that's going to reduce the time. So I don't want to reduce too much. So again, I reduced it. I made it longer here because I know it's going to be reduced a little later on. Okay, then we got this specific gear perk. Now, usually what I run is this guy right here, precise calibration. So enemies marked by Auspex Scan take an additional 75% damage, but the Auspex Scan radius is reduced by 25%. The reason I did not, again, you could still choose this, and it's an incredible build. I still categorize it as an S tier boss slayer build. However, the reason I chose this, little less for the bosses, little more for the extremists. It'll still work for Terminus, it'll still work for bosses, but specifically aimed more for like Majoris and extremists. So a perfectly timed parry or block gives the parried enemy a mark from the Auspex Scan. Okay, so this is why I chose this. So battle focus, this specific perk is going to be incredibly advantageous, incredibly in your favor, specifically because you're going to be using the new heroic combat knife that gives you or reflects damage back to the enemy every parry, right? Do you guys see where I'm going with this? So basically when you parry, not only are you going to reflect damage back, but you're going to pop a mark of an Auspex on him, thus weakening the enemy already. So if it didn't finish him there, literally one bolt will probably end him right there. Okay, so again, this is going to be fantastic for Majoris. Probably one-shot it. Extremis, maybe 2 shots. Terminus, it might take you, a little bit longer. But I'm telling you guys, the combination of battle focus and the new heroic combat knife is actually insane. Okay, I hope they don't nerf it because right now it's wild and I love it, and it's incredibly fun to play. And then for the last gear perk, we have expert timing. So enemies marked by Auspex Scan take an additional 75% damage, but the mark's duration is reduced by 4 seconds. So that 75%, guys, absolutely insane. And again, this is why we chose this bad boy right here, priority targeting, to get 8 seconds longer because we're going to get a reduction of 4 seconds here. And then for a signature perk, we have Radiating Impact. A melee finisher additionally deals damage area of effect, damage in a 10-meter radius. Cooldown is 90 seconds. And then as for the prestige perks, we'll just go over it quickly, guys. We have Acuity. Each consecutive headshot increases headshot damage by 3% up to 15%. The bonus lasts 5 seconds without a headshot. Then we have Fortitude, health increased by 15%. Then we have Skilled Supplier, ammo reserve is increased by 15%. And then lastly, we have Resilience. So Medicaid stims restore 40% more health. Kind of the theme of the prestige build, guys, is I'm looking for more health because the tactical kind of is a pretty squishy build, and it doesn't have actually has no health regeneration outside of maybe a few perks in a perk tree for a weapon that gets you like a little bit of HP back if your health is below 30%, whatever. That's not enough for me. So I'm taking as much health regeneration as I can get. And there you have it, guys, an absolute S-tier tactical boss slayer build using the new patch 12 heroic weapon, the Deathwatch Heavy Bolt Rifle with the grenade launcher and the Argent Edge combat knife. All right, so between both these new weapons, the Heavy Bolt Rifle and the the incredibly devastating Argent Edge combat knife, the Tactical Marines Auspex Scan combined with the heroic perks of those new variants, this setup lets you mark targets, stagger them with explosive bolter fire, and then finish them with brutal counterattacks. When everything comes together, Extremis, Terminus, Majoris, whatever, bosses, they just melt. This build really highlights what Tactical does best, controlling the battlefield and deleting priority targets for their squad. Brothers, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments if you've tried the new heroic weapons yet and what builds you've been running with them. All right, guys, as always, blessed run, brothers. I'll see you in the next one.